Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrifice my time so you don't have to. All right, now we gotta calm down. We gotta get back to business. We gotta get back to focusing on what's circulating right now in the wrestling news and the wrestling media. So obviously we're off a high, off a great fucking SummerSlam last night. That was a great pay-per-view. And WWE, they're sitting on top of the world right now. They got their main guy back. Unfortunately, they probably lost one of their other main guys, which Jacob out too. We'll talk about that as time goes on throughout the week. We'll see how that clears up when it's all said and done. I mean, he is in a walking boot right now. My fears absolutely were confirmed from last night. He did get injured, but we'll see to the extent of how badly it is going throughout the week, and I'll talk about that later on. And, you know, with all the things happening, it seems that we're getting a bit of a change of scenery with new champions on the horizon. You know, we got 4 new champions last night. People who are still in the old guard, but, you know, Cody Rhodes, he is the face of WWE, and with Liv Morgan, they are continuing that story with the Judgment Day, and you probably need to have, you definitely need to have the Women's Championship in order for that to work. We all know that to be the case. But I'm comparing and contrasting right now, because while WWE is sitting on the high right now, on top of the world, trending like crazy for all things having to do with the content, we come back to AEW, which right now are also blowing up in the news. So for those like, Devontae, talk more about WWE. I did last night, SummerSlam. Go check it out. It's like right there on the top of my head, on my channel. You should go do that. Stop being a little bitch. And we have to get back to what's also circulating in the news, which is still going on right now, which is the whole Britt Baker and MJF controversy stemming from them having a backstage altercation. Apparently, July 17th or something along the lines of that, where allegedly Britt Baker was talking smack behind MJF's back, apparently involving Alicia Atal, MJF's girlfriend, which caused Alicia to go run back to MJF to go tell him what they were saying about her, or go back and tell MJF what Britt Baker was saying about him. Britt Baker got mad at Alicia for running and telling on MJF while being in the women's locker room. She kicked her out. MJF got even more upset. They got into an argument. More in particular, MJF barged into the women's locker room allegedly, and they got into an argument which, ended with him punching a hole in the wall. This all happened right before the Will Ospreay match that they had for an hour. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of the lore, catching you up on the previously on Dragon Ball Z moment. And, I found some interesting comments from Jim Cornette. He actually talked about this really fast. I expected him to wait at least a week or two. And I'm never going to agree with Cornette as far as politically or personally or anything like that. But dude is still one of the greatest minds of professional wrestling, so his opinion will forever be valued within a wrestling context, because you can't fuck with Jim when it comes to that at all, no matter what I said about him in the past, which, by the way, his politics suck, but that's neither here nor there. Check this out, though. I'll leave this out in the description box below if you want to follow along. It's a huge transcript that regarding what Jim feels about this situation, and I want to go more in deeper detail in regards to this. While speaking on Jim Cornette's YouTube channel, Jim Cornette commented on Britt Baker's suspension and fine situation, pointing out that AEW is bringing her back for the big match at Wembley despite the 2-week suspension. He noted that the suspension is not without pay, which is what I said too in the video, meaning she will still earn her salary while staying home, which makes the suspension less impactful. He also highlighted that Baker wrestles infrequently, so the fine might be a concern, but the suspension might not be as significant since she gets time off with pay. And I quote from Jim, "That's the thing, they're bringing her back for Wembley because it's a big match, so she's suspended for 2 weeks, but nobody says suspended without pay, so you get to stay home and make the same money as if you have gone, or as if you have been gone, so what the hell? And she wrestles 8 times a year to begin with? Base, that's actually true. So the fine might be an issue, but I think the suspension, well, you can kind of look at it like this. Well, they fine me, but I get the next 2 weeks off to work on my tan. Based. I'm just pulling numbers for even mathematics sake. For her weekly, which is not, this is not a world pay, he's just making an example. I'm just pulling numbers for even mathematics sake. Her weekly salary is $7,000 a week. And if she gets fined $10,000, then she's still making $4,000 for 2 weeks for doing nothing. Because obviously 7,000 times 2, because it's 2 weeks of worth of pay, is 14,000. $10,000 fine minus equals 4,000. Gotta explain that for the retards in the audience. So then who's really being penalized here? Cornette then criticized Baker's wrestling skills, suggesting she isn't particularly good, but has been favored by Tony Khan and has been subjected to the same repetitive and foolish task as other wrestlers. Baker's long absence helped keep her from becoming tiresome, making her situation relatively favorable. Cornette advised that if he were in her position, he would keep quiet. And I quote from Jim Cornette, "She's getting by on she ain't that good of a wrestler. She looks pretty good, and Tony likes her, and she's been there for a while. They don't make her go out and do stupid things over and over like they do everybody else. I beg to differ on some occasions. Never mind. She goes away for long stretches where you don't get sick of her, and then she comes back. So she's in a pretty good position. If I were her, I would shut my pie hole." Cornette reflected on the drama in AEW, likening it to a chaotic, unprofessional environment similar to a high school setting. He compared it to his experiences in other wrestling promotions where backstage issues were handled more seriously and professionally. He noted that AEW's internal drama, which has been a persistent issue even after CM Punk's departure, does not reflect well on the company, especially when negotiating TV deals or promoting big events like Wembley. Thank you. That's exactly what I said too. And I quote from Jim Cornette, "Again, this is Saved by the Bell, not only on television, but in the locker room, behind the scenes. I've never seen anything like this in the wrestling promotions I've been in, where there were manipulations behind the scenes and ill feelings among top major players in the company. It was usually over important stuff and done fairly well. It wasn't like a bunch of kids just raining at recess because the teacher left the room." Cornette expressed frustration with how the situation has been handled, emphasizing that Tony Khan needs positive stories rather than more internal drama. Cornette pointed out that the ongoing negative stories about AEW suggest a lack of control and professionalism within the company. The handling of suspensions and fines seems ineffective, with wrestlers not feeling genuinely punished when they are sent home with pay. And I quote from Corny, "All this, if you're Tony Khan and again you're negotiating a TV deal, you have Wembley coming up, you need positive stories. You don't need stories about in-house drama. That's been the story of AEW from the beginning. It was suppressed for a while, and then once it started coming out, it never stopped. Even when Punk left, it never stopped. Are you happy about this getting out right now? Only if I intend to have Britt Baker and or MJF lock the other person in the locker room at Wembley or backstage so we can catch it on security camera and show that. Otherwise, no. It's another example of a bunch of unprofessional dickheads or dickwads, there's kind of an asterisk there, and minor childish arguments and personalities being allowed to run wild because Tony doesn't have any control over anything. And again, you're suspended and you're fined. And the first thing they do is, oh, hey, Uncle Dave, let me tell you what happened here, which is fucking based and true. Absolutely. I hate that too. It doesn't register because it's not a real punishment. Wrestlers do not feel punished when they are sent home and told to take bumps and not to get on airplanes and not to make trips and not to have to go to work. Oh, by the way, you're going to get paid even if you're fined, which is true, if you're coming out with anything for that period of time, and it's 2 weeks because she knows they can't leave her off Wembley. Which is absolutely base, bro. Everything that he said, every fucking thing that he said. And the thing is, look, this is the nonsense that I'm talking about right here. I'm not going to say the person's name, but I look at this comment right here, right? This comment underneath it says, "I like Corny, but he's showing favoritism here because he likes MJF. Not a single comment about his girlfriend who has a job with the company snitched and caused all this trouble." No, see, you're missing the point. First off, Jim Cornette isn't even necessarily taking Britt Baker to task. All he's doing is pointing out why her suspension makes no sense in regards to reprimanding anyone in that position. That's what he's saying. He's not taking any sides here. That's one thing. And as far as the favoritism goes, as far as MJF is considered, okay, folks, I'm going to say this one more fucking time. Was it bad that MJF walked into a women's locker room? If that's actually true, cannot confirm whether or not that's true. So, by the way, can't really elaborate on that. What we can elaborate on that has been mostly confirmed from everybody is that Britt Baker was talking shit about another wrestler. The girlfriend heard it. There is no snitching, you fucking retard. How is that snitch? Bruh, if someone was talking shit about my homeboys back and I don't know who the people are or I don't engage with these people, of course I'm going to tell my homeboy they talking shit behind his back. What? What, as opposed to him going back over there and kiki and cuckooing with them, not knowing that they're fucking talking shit behind his back? That's stupid as fuck. What the hell do you mean snitch, you moron? But then it goes even further, and then again, I hate when people try to use the argument of bias when you yourself are biased. If for anything else, admit your own bias before actually going out of your way to talk about bias, so we can at least have a bit of consistency here. It's pretty fucking clear for the people who are saying things like, oh, well, there's a double standard. I talked about this in my previous video. Oh, well, there's a double standard happening right now at the moment. Oh, well, there's a bunch of bias going on because it's a top guy versus Britt Baker. I repeat myself again. Two things. One, this is not as if this is Britt Baker's first time acting like this. Most likely, Tony Khan, I would presume, is only acting on this because she has been known to have done this plenty of times. She has a pattern of behavior with this issue. You guys are talking as if her doing this, it's her first time being a mean girl. She has done this plenty of times. There's a rumor going around that she's done it with Mariah May. I talked about previously her Twitter rants about a year ago on this situation. We all know the situation in regards to her and Thunder Rosa. This is not her first time. This is a pattern of behavior. What part do you guys not understand? If one person does something that's, and again, it's the same situation with Jack Perry and CM Punk when people are like, why didn't Jack Perry get fired? When one person gets in trouble for the first time versus another person getting in trouble for the fifth time, you're going to get different results based off of the pattern of behavior. Because one may argue with that person getting in trouble one time and with you getting in trouble this other time, it means that you're the common denominator because you are the one with the pattern of behavior. That's horrible. Therefore, I'm going to reprimand you so you can stop this. So most likely another situation occurring similar to what got you in trouble probably won't occur because again, I'm fucking reprimanding the person with the pattern of behavior who is now engaging with this person of a different scenario and in a different situation. Do you not understand that? Do you not get that? Why is that so fucking hard to understand? And then number two, when it comes to the so-called bias, bro, this is, bro, it's like these people, it's like they forget that they're in professional wrestling in the end of the day. Okay, it's one thing if something horrible and detrimental happens, then you have to take recourse. Again, like the CM Punk situation, right? Obviously. But in any circumstance that's similar to this, if Britt Baker, for an example, was in MJF's shoes, or hell, let's just keep her in her own shoes, and then there was a jobber who went out of their way to do what the hell MJF did or what Britt Baker did, right? And Britt Baker was on the opposite side of that. I think the thing that Tony Khan would probably do is tell that jobber, let's just hypothetically say that jobber was a reoccurring jobber, right? What the fuck you think is going to happen? Tony's probably going to side with Britt Baker until the jobber will never come back to the building ever again, right? If it's a lower level talent, let's just bring him over to ROH. He did it with Sammy Guevara. Do you not understand what the fuck the word double standard means, or do you just apply it whenever you yourself hypocritically become super duper biased? Because that's what it seems. Again, the inconsistency. Just admit your own bias first before talking about the situation, because you're not consistent at all. You're not. You're absolutely not. You don't even understand what you're saying in regards to bias and double standard without even highlighting the fact that if this was done to Britt Baker, same things that are being done with MJF would have been done with Britt Baker. As a matter of fact, I would outright say, like I actually reflected on from my first point, nothing would have happened to Britt Baker at all had she not had a pattern of behavior. Same thing like a CM Punk. Nothing would have happened to CM Punk at all if there wasn't a pattern of behavior upon this. You can take whatever opinions you want about CM Punk in regards to the situation. I tend to favor CM Punk a little bit more than the EVPs, but I'm not going to sit here and ignore the fact that he has not been in a bunch of situations outside of just, normally focusing on the people who were engaged with him 2 years ago. It's with multiple different people. I can understand the sentiments as far as how he feels. Doesn't take away from the fact that he is still the common denominator out of all of this, right? That's admitting your bias while still being able to engage with the topic versus just outright doing what Jim Cornette is what you're accusing him of doing, which is flat out taking MJF's side while you yourself won't even hold to count or hold to task Britt Baker. That's why I say the people on social media never take them seriously at all. It's like the dumb fucks who come to me all the time saying, why don't you ever hold accountable WWE for any of the bad stuff? Which I do all the fucking time. But they themselves won't ever hold AEW accountable for anything at all. They'll come at you and say, why don't you hold WWE accountable, while at the same time they themselves never hold AEW accountable, which is why people like me even exist to begin with, because you yourself won't do your job, your due diligence as far as holding people accountable. So here I am having to fucking do that, because if it's not me or people like me who are covering this shit in the way that it should be fucking covered, then guess what's gonna happen? No, everything's gonna go unnoticed. People are still pondering why the fuck no one gives a shit about AEW. And then we get this cycle of, well, no one's really calling us out, so clearly it's not really us doing the bad thing, it's outside factors. Let's just keep doing the same thing. Hopefully, if we keep, throwing the fucking dart at the wall backwards and blindfolded, eventually we're going to hit directly in the middle. I mean, granted, it's not going to be consistent because we're backwards and blindfolded, and that's almost literally impossible. But let's just keep trying anyways, right? Eventually something's going to hit. It's that kind of logic right there that breeds people like me, for an example. You hate me so goddamn much, right? Say they can be said about Britt Baker and MJF, bruh. Everything that Jim Cornette said makes absolute sense. And I said the exact same thing beforehand, too, when it comes to Tony Khan. And it's not making... Look. And honestly, I knew she was fine. I didn't even know she was fine that little. $10,000, huh? Bruh. And I said this before, too. It's not a suspension. It's a vacation, bruh. It's a 2-week paid vacation, essentially. It's a 2-week... Again, I mentioned this too. I didn't see them say anything about suspensions or without pay, while being suspended. She literally gets to go home, get a deductible, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, it's a fine, right? So she can use it as a tax write-off, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but she's not being taxed on that, so that could be a tax write-off for the most part, right? Someone can correct me if I'm not mistaken. Again, maybe that's not how tax write-offs work. I could have sworn that's how it works. I mean, at least for me at my job or something along the lines of that, if you miss a day or something like that, I can use that as a way to not have to include inside my taxes, which brings that down even more. But again, not focusing on that at the moment. My point being is, though, it's not really a consequence. It's an incentive. Because look what happened. I'm not saying Britt Baker was the one to run to Dave Meltzer or anything like that. I just do find it peculiar that no one talked about this for about 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden people are now talking about it, right? And again, it could be anybody. It's not as if Britt Baker and MJF didn't get a bunch of people, drawing attention or anything like that. But that's the kind of company Tony Khan runs. You got people running around taking secrets that are happening backstage in your company and going directly with Meltzer to it. Hell, that's not even the environment that you cultivated. That's the environment that you yourself adored. That's how you yourself became engaged with professional wrestling, because of the dirt sheet stuff, right? I mean, that's what you do in your little E-Fest shit when Dave Meltzer's right there being the moderator, right? Just want to talk about this because I seen Jim Cornette's opinion on this, and I feel like, okay, cool. Well, for the people who are upset with me in the comment section, saying that, you're not a wrestler, you don't know what happens backstage, yada, 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 yada. Literally, almost 99% of everything that I said, Jim Cornette just validated, right? So, I mean, what is it? Is it people that we get to choose who our favorites happen to be backstage, and therefore we get to say whether or not I'm incorrect on the situation, or we just get rid of this dumb fucking rule in general, and we just use, blatant common sense? I vote for the latter. Call me crazy. But with that being said, folks, that's going to do it for today's videos. I'm going to be at work for probably the rest of the day. So I'll be back tomorrow with some more chicanery and more news, or if something blows up, I'll talk about it later on tonight. And we'll be back with more of the adventures of Devontae Rackley and this awesome-ass channel. And it's super awesome. Hence why you should or shouldn't subscribe. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. And there's also not a gun behind your back. You probably shouldn't turn around immediately, but I mean, I'm kind of like Joe Pesci. You can do whatever you want to do. Forget about it. I don't know, whatever. But with that being said, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you fine folks later. A deuces and a P.I.O.S.